Hello and welcome to Business Agenda SA. In this series, we'll lift the lid on South Australian business.
We'll discover the innovation, creativity and industriousness that's driving our most successful companies forward.
Coming up on today's program.
We look at the huge potential for agribusiness in feeding the hungry dragon that is China.
In the aftermath of the Christchurch earthquakes, we find out what South Australian businesses have been doing to help with the rebuild.
And we explore the myriad of options available for financing your business.
China has traditionally met its own needs in terms of food production, but it's now become a net importer. Massive investment in infrastructure and changing socio-economic conditions are dramatically changing the landscape. The increasingly affluent urban Chinese population is concerned with food quality and safety. Cameron reports on what this opportunity means for South Australian producers.
When we think of trade with China, we often think of the mining industry. But with a growing population of 1.3 billion people and demand for products such as beef, lamb, seafood, wine and dairy growing at an ever faster pace, the opportunity for Australian agribusiness is huge. In South Australia in particular, we have a reputation for clean, green and reliable food production. We couldn't be better placed to take advantage of the China opportunity. If you're a food producer wanting to get into the Chinese market, where do you go for advice? We asked ANZ agribusiness specialist Kim Darcy to lend his expertise.
Agribusiness describes everything from aquaculture, horticulture to broadacre. In reality, there's a greater demand for aquacultural products.
Take the example of South Australian-owned Fleurieu Milk Company. Jeff Hutchinson and his partners are a local business ideally placed to take on the massive Chinese market. Their journey so far has been a fascinating one.
Things were tight. We were getting paid 28 cents a litre for milk and it was costing us roughly 33 cents a litre to produce it at that stage. So we were steadily going backwards and we decided to bite the bullet and borrow some money and set up our own plants. I guess the business grew from there. The next 2 years was chasing plant and machinery and getting ourselves up and running. And approximately 8 years ago, I guess we bottled our first bottle of milk and it's steadily grown from there. Yogurt's been up and running now for about 3 years. We initially set up a joint venture with a Queensland company with the idea of creating a market down here. From then, with ANZ's help, we've gone and built ourselves a processing plant down here, so we do everything on site.
Back in China, the social and economic landscape is changing rapidly.
Whilst the population is growing, there's an urbanisation that's occurring. So people are moving from the rural communities into urbanised areas. And we're seeing middle incomes rise as well. As middle incomes are rising, people are demanding better quality food and beverage and more higher protein content in that food.
With that in mind, for dairy producer Jeff, milk powder would potentially give him an entry into the Chinese marketplace.
The potential with milk powder is huge. It's obviously fairly large through China anyhow and on through Asian regions. Once again, it goes back to the ability of refrigeration and shelf life, and the powder's an obvious solution to those problems.
The Chinese consumer is drawn to high quality, so in that regard, Fleurieu Milk and many other Australian companies are already well placed.
With Australia's production around that higher quality piece of food and beverage, we are uniquely positioned. So geography is good, but we also are providing a fantastic product for the Chinese market. You have to start to balance up. Have I got the capacity within my existing operation to produce the product that I need to send to China without impacting my local customers?
I think as far as the factory goes, we're not at 50% capacity at this stage and we'd certainly be looking to increase it to full capacity and worry about our next step then. But we've certainly looked into export. We're working our way through Aquis accreditation at the moment. We believe there's a fair market out there to be able to get it to another country and still have a decent amount of expiry on it.
We have 700 people sitting in China. And so when it comes to directing people overseas and putting them into contact, we've got ANZ people at both ends of the transaction. So we can actually get our ANZ people in Hong Kong, in Shanghai, in Beijing to introduce our small business customers to local contacts.
We get a number of inquiries from throughout Asia, small entrepreneurial type of bloke that wants to have a bit of a crack at getting dairy products into Asia. And I think the size and scale of things that are available over there, we're mad not to have a look at it.
Australian agricultural exports are set to double by 2050. The key for South Australian businesses will be determining what their market wants and how to get it to them. Getting good advice will be imperative during this process, but with 17 million babies being born in China each year, the demand for our produce will only increase.
For more information or a copy of ANZ's Feeding the Dragon report, go to anz.com/inasia.
Professor Juran Rus is the founder of Intellectual Capital Services Limited. He pioneered the modern field of intellectual capital science and is a recognised world expert in innovation management and strategy.
Each week he'll give us his insights into innovation, starting with why it's important to South Australia's economy.
When you talk about innovation from the standpoint of its jurisdiction, a country or a state, innovation is the fundamental driver of economic growth. And of course, as a state, you need economic growth because that generates the surplus that allows you to then spend money on things that people want, like infrastructure, like hospital and healthcare, like education. So without that innovation, we do not have that money, and hence innovation is critically important for countries and jurisdictions. Innovation is frequently confused with research, and I think it's important to define the distinction between the two, and I'm going to make a very simplified distinction. So research is the ability to convert money to knowledge. Innovation is the ability to convert knowledge to money. And a good innovation is the ability to come up with something new, the ability to bring it to market, the ability to ensure that it results in money paid. If you don't do all those three things, you don't have an innovation.
For more information, go to dmita.sa.gov.au. Coming up after the break, we take a look at how Adelaide is helping its sister city Christchurch to rebuild.